Hello everyone and welcome to another photo mishmash. This is episode 97. I'm Scott.
And I'm Toby. And then this is where we usually cut to that little doot part. But it's been a while and this is a special episode, so we're just going to dive straight into this live UK special. If you're joining us live, thank you so much. There's going to be show notes linked right down below. If you're watching after the fact, you can look at those show notes as well. And thank you to Scott and Lucy for being fantastic hosts. But this guy's not the best London tour guide.
No, not the best.
You admit that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not the best.
All right. He's got some facts down, but about 9 out of 10 buildings I'd point at that weren't Big Ben or the Tower of London. Actually, sorry, Big Ben's not a building. I know that. It's the clock, the House of Parliament, or the Tower of London. He wasn't so sure what they were.
No, it wasn't the best of that, but we got round.
We did.
The fun bus was good. The open top tour bus. Yeah, that.
Yeah, but maybe before we go down too much of a rat hole that I started us on just now, we should say that this is typically a weekly photo show about the week's photography news, tips, tricks, your questions answered live, and then in the after show we do a critique for those who are Patreon supporters.
We do.
This is going to be a little bit different because one, we haven't done it in a while.
A little while.
April? Early May?
You're probably still getting over the hangover from it.
Those who watched, there was a little bit of drinking to celebrate, the changing that happened, and a lot of movement on my part over the last couple of months.
Yep, and it's obviously different insofar as there's no screen here around me, and Toby's not putting any stupid hats on me this time. There's definitely none around the room. Yeah, we're pretty excited to be bringing you a show. It's the first time me and Toby have ever been in the same place to be able to do anything like this.
That is important to say, that this is the first time that we have been in person together.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to bring up the chat because that's my favorite part of doing the show, is seeing what people are chatting. Also to check and see if the audio is working, things like that.
Everything's working. Yeah, we do start.
There was no LED panel on fire shortly before we started.
Definitely did not.
No.
The LED panel we've been using for 6 months with no problem definitely did not nearly catch fire before we started the show. Definitely not. That's not why we were late.
Not that we were ever on time when there wasn't fires on LED panels.
I was always on time. You weren't ready.
That's right. And I'm impressed that you are on time because it is freaking late right now. I'm a little worn out.
Yeah. It's 10 p.m. here. We did over the past 3 days we did about 45,000 steps. It's quite a lot. We've been down the longest pleasure pier in the world. We've been around.
That just sounds like a really poor euphemism.
No, it wasn't a poor euphemism. We've been flying drones. We've been seeing London sights. We've been seeing some not so touristy London sights.
That's right. And we had a photo walk last night, which was a lot of fun. And we maybe didn't finish with the same number that we started, but we had a really good time. And we're really sorry to those 2 people that got lost. It was great. Thank you so much for coming out. We didn't do I was very consistent with every photo walk I did over the course of the last couple of months and made sure we got a group picture. But I completely forgot last night, once we got down to the beach and we were doing long exposures across the River Thames.
Yeah.
Growing up I always said Thames because that's how it looks like it's spelled.
Yeah.
It's the Thames. And so it was a lot of fun. Then we went out for drinks afterwards, and so last night was a very late night. We got a fairly early start today, and again toward, as you said, less touristy areas, Camden and Shoreditch.
It wasn't even close. Even close.
We went through a south at some point. That was really cool. For those who are American and have been to Brooklyn, it seems kind of like it's London's Brooklyn, but people might be interested in my opinion of London. It's very positive. It is a fantastic city. I love that it's got this kind of mix of very modern, very new, all kinds of different glass structure buildings. And then, you turn a corner and there's the Tower of London with its central pieces dating ridiculously far back, and a church just down the street from that. dating back to pre-Roman times, Saxon times. So that's really cool, and that's kind of fun to capture, to try to photograph some of those aspects of the old and the new both.
Yeah.
Offers a lot. People have been friendly, and I've been having a good time.
We shot some content as well, didn't we? Sure.
We did, and so let's move on a little bit from that and say that I've been traveling a lot over the past couple of months, and it's been going really, really well. The travel. If you haven't watched travel vlogs from Cuba, Tanzania, and what will be coming next is Scotland. I actually still have some content from Tanzania to come. I actually have literally about 5 or 6 more hours, but I'm not going to make you watch that. I'll cut it down to just a few minutes from Tanzania. That was an amazing, amazing experience, and if you ever get the opportunity to go on safari, I think you should. And Cuba was amazing as well. And so I think, you know, if you've been following this channel, if you were watching now, you've probably seen at least some of this stuff. And then Scotland. I was blown away by the scenery in Scotland. I knew it was going to be pretty, but it was on level with Iceland, which I think is kind of a gold standard in this part of the world for kind of varied landscapes. And Scotland didn't have quite that variation, but very beautiful, beautiful rolling hills. The light was amazing. I think we had ridiculously lucky weather from what I hear, because it did not rain any day of the official tour. It rained the first day we got there, and it rained, well, today. Here,
a little bit today.
In London.
A little bit in Camden today, but not much.
Not much.
It's raining now though.
Huh.
Quite a lot. But we're not in London. It's sort of a London special, but we're going to call it a
We're
London
calling it UK special.
suburby kind of special.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but the time here has been very short because I am off on another trip back to America, back to the United States, to New England. We're going to do fall colors, and then we're going to do the coastal Maine. Those trips are full. But there are a bunch of other trips coming out next year. We'll put a link down below. Some of them are full already. They do sell out very quickly. But if you want to join and travel with me on any of those trips, you are more than welcome to. It's been a lot of fun to have people who have watched this show, have watched my channel, come along on these trips. And I really enjoy teaching on them. You're going to see a little bit less vlogs in the future from the trips because I am teaching more. It's just the hands-on teaching is just a lot of fun, and I really enjoy that. I know I'm bringing some of that teaching into this as well, but we're going to balance it out a little bit more.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So now let's talk a little bit about, let me get my show notes up and say, so I just said, been traveling lots. We did the London meetup photo walk. You'll see some vlogs coming soon. Let's talk gear for a minute, as we often like to do. The 5D Mark IV is not within reach. I had a hands-on review come out of that camera about a week and a half ago, I think, 2 weeks, something like that. I took it to Scotland with me and have been shooting it with it a lot more. And if you watch my review, you know, it's a mixed opinion because I'm a little disappointed that here was this camera that is a successor to a camera that really was a fantastic hybrid camera in its day. And the 5D Mark IV I don't feel like continues that awesome hybrid because of the video side of things.
Yeah, the 5D Mark III was something you could use for professional use, pretty much for both. And now, it's not to say you couldn't use it for professional use for 1080, but in terms of the 4K, that codec really just kind of kills it. It just makes the file sizes way too fast, way too big. Sorry.
Yep. But that aside, photography-wise, it continues Canon's, you know, kind of fantastic camera. Fantastic might be too strong a word. Very, very good. And I've been very happy with it. But me personally, I do miss my articulating screen from the Sony.
Yep.
Especially when I'm doing landscape work. But I'll probably be talking in a little bit more depth about how I feel about the camera at some point in the near future. Although I kind of feel like I said what I needed to in the review, so I'm not sure if I'll completely revisit that or not.
It was really handy just on the photo walk yesterday, just with the camera on a tripod, just while we were doing long exposures, just to be able to pull it out, just see down there, make sure we're level, make sure my horizon's straight, make sure, you know, the different artifacts in the London skyline were in the right part of the frame, and just, it is something that I miss shooting with when I use my 5D Mark III. The Sony is just it is just in that regard is easier to shoot with. That being said, I do personally still prefer the ergonomics of the Canon, just overall handling and experience. So it's a trade-off. There's no perfect camera for everyone.
Now I see Corey in the chat room, and there were multiple people that commented on my video too when I complained about the lack of articulating screen, of using the Canon Connect app as a substitute for that. In some situations, Corey especially shooting video, you've got an amazing rig set up with a space for your phone, so they're using that as a secondary screen that gives you basically an articulating screen. In that situation, yeah, it serves as a substitute. But in general photography, the idea of, well, let's say this is the 5D Mark III. I don't know why we didn't put it within reach. To be able to set up a shot and then use your phone to kind of do things like level and make sure your framing is good. So you're looking on here and you're moving. Have you ever really tried to do that? Because it becomes incredibly difficult when you don't have things in the exact same plane in the exact same way to get it all lined up. So that's a pretty damn poor substitute in that case. But I've got a couple ideas of things that I want to show that might help that in the future. So the answer is yes, that could be, but you know, I'm not that desperate. I think I'd rather lay on the ground before I tried to do that. That said, the Canon Connect app is pretty good. It does a decent job. It's definitely the best of the Canon app. The old one was pretty poor, but that's good. So, and I had a video that went out that showed my custom button setup. It showed you how to turn a couple of those buttons, because you do have one more little nub there on the back now, and I've been experimenting with some different options for that. Plus the set button for magnification I think is nice because it gives you the one hand. I'm not going to repeat that whole video. You can go watch it if you're interested in my detailed setup for the 5D Mark IV, including back button focus. I will say the one other thing that I experimented with on the Scotland trip is shooting stars at night using the built-in intervalometer in the 5D Mark IV, and I'm just very happy to be able to do that without any other devices necessary. Typically I plug a Trigger Trap phone app in with their dongle. 5D Mark IV, I didn't need to do that. You don't need to do it on the Sony either because it has a built-in app, but one, you have to make sure you bought it, downloaded it, and updated it, and two, it's slow. Have you worked much with the apps on the Sony?
Yeah, they're not great. The Wi-Fi shooting app particularly is poor.
I actually don't mind the built-in, the remote. If you've updated it, I find it to be pretty decent. But those other ones, like the time-lapse app, the Star Trail.
It annoys me in the Sony when you set up an app and then you just assume that everything that you have set up in your camera as standard will be copied over, and it isn't. You move into the I think there's the app that's kind of like the inbuilt filter app where you can
darken the sky.
Yeah, you can darken the sky. But then you take a shot and then you go back and you sit there and I think, oh, okay, hang on, why have I got a JPEG? It defaults it to JPEG. It doesn't carry your settings over. There's just quirks in it you just kind of wouldn't think would be there. And I also think it's a bit of a we're going to keep it a family show, so a bit of a Mickey take that you'd spend however many £1,000 or dollars on a camera, and then you have to spend another $10.
Yes, and well, what else? Are you done there?
I'm done.
I kind of felt like I cut you off.
Nope.
All right, I'll say, and somehow my Sony account is buggered up right now. And
well, that's the family rating of the show gone.
Buggered up? No, in the US that's a perfectly acceptable word.
Oh, good.
I don't know what it means here. I'll plead innocence. It's messed up, and I've had to tweet to Sony PlayStation to say my account's messed up. I can't put any more money in it, and I am doing everything correctly. I know I am. They said something's not right. You know, do this step and this step, and the steps it asked me to do, I said this is headed off to a different account system. I'm not playing with your PlayStation. I want my phone, my camera to work. And they said, oh well, for that you have to go here, and I haven't had time to go there yet. So I don't know. And Corey, I didn't feel like you're being argumentative. I just wondered, you know, I was just answering your question. Have I tried the Canon Connect app? I have. Okay. I think that's enough about the 5D Mark IV for now. Let's talk a little bit about your trip to Photokina. That was a little, you know, a couple weeks, 2 weeks ago now, maybe?
Yeah.
That's actually not that long ago. You went to Germany. This is the every 2 years large, extremely large photo trade show.
The largest in the world, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Pretty sure historically as well, all kinds of stuff have been announced at Photokina over the years. Obviously, well, so many different announcements to run through. But key content, we've still got content to come out that we're still reviewing the absolute mountains of footage to go through, trying to find out firstly what people are interested in, and then secondly basically what my cameraman wasn't bumped to hell with, because we don't keep giving you
Excuses.
terrible content. But in terms of videos that have gone out, first one that went out was the hands-on with the Sony A99 Mark II. It's a very nice feeling camera, one of the new SLT hybrids, so it feels like a DSLR, but you get an EVF, which in my opinion, if they can get the technology right, is the future.
Now this was pretty surprising because there was a lot of rumors about the A99 being dead.
Yeah.
You know, the alpha mount, the A mount, sorry. Not the A99. And they announced it, and here it is. So it's not dead?
It's well, you know, it's difficult because a lot of people can read to what they want in the into the Sony rep's comments, but you know, he didn't seem completely confident in what he was saying in terms of the life of the A mount, and I tried to ask him off camera about lenses as well, and he wasn't sure. You know. But it felt like a very, very nice camera. It seems to me like if the A99 Mark II does very, very well, then the A mount will live on. If it doesn't, then the A mount will die. So if you're a big fan of the A mount, maybe go and buy the A99 Mark II.
What's the price? Did you say that?
I don't think they had announced that at the time, but it's. I can't remember. Maybe we can see if it's available for pre-order on something like B&H. But yeah, it's nice looking. It felt very, very nice. The FPS was crazy. The buffer and it was crazy for 42 megapixel files. And a lot of the responses have been. Is that £3,000? Is it £3,000?
Yeah.
So for something that, if you're an A-mount user, is basically a rival to the D5 and the 1DX. Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad price.
Yeah, with about 42 megapixels, I mean, that is a huge step above what you're getting from the 5D Mark IV and the 1DX.
Yeah,
especially the 1DX.
A lot of the comments responded was like, "Oh, but you're losing like a third of light through the translucent mirror," and it's definitely not that much light. I think, as far as we know, it's something like a third of a stop, if that. And with that Sony sensor that's in this thing, I honestly don't think that's a terrible trade-off. For that focusing system, and you know, the performance of this thing in terms of the sensor, I've got a lot of reservations about the overall camera, but in terms of the sensor itself, is phenomenal.
Was it a touchscreen?
Was it a touchscreen? I don't think it was.
And Dalibor saying, why would I think that the A mount was dead, or why? Well, because a lot of people were feeling like the A mount was dead, because we just hadn't seen much in development of the A mount in a while.
Dalibor said no touch.
Yeah. No touch. So, you know, it just felt like they were putting a lot of energy into the FE mount or the E mount, you know, the Sony A7R line, and the NEX line, which all uses the same mount. So just, you know, it felt like it had been a while. And there were a lot of people that were surprised by this. So yeah, I think you're right. It'll be interesting to see. You know, in some ways, I kind of wanted the alpha mount to die, because then I felt like they could put their full energies into this E mount. They've got now 2 different mounts for full frame and crop sensor cameras, and that's a little weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I think. Well, they've got their mirrorless mount, and then they've got their mirrored mount. So
that's true.
Yep. And we all know that that's because of flange distance, which is one of my favourite words.
You just wanted to make people drink out there. Any of the Patreon people who may be playing the
flange distance game.
Flange distance drinking game. For those who are watching and are not Patreon sponsors, that is a way to support this channel and the show. The show has been happening, mostly thanks to you, Scott, for running it while I've been traveling. for those people. And it wasn't as a way to make money. It's just because we just kind of didn't have the studio set up, didn't have the Riley to run the switchboard, and so we just wanted it to be available to those people who really cared about the content, cared about watching us. So it has been running, and there's been lots of jokes about flange distances because that's been just kind of a running gag now.
We've been having as many as volunteered Patreon members as guests, so the whole group have been able to get to know everyone else, get to know what people shoot with, get to know what people would like to shoot, different techniques, different editing techniques, because we do critiques every single week, and it means that of course my opinion is definitely not gospel, and it's great to get someone else's opinion, whether they're a beginner or whether they're working as a working professional. We've had some great opinions from different people, lots of people that have disagreed with me and been very right in those as well. So
that's what the thing. That's what Roger posted a few days ago, because the show that I was part of, we had a fairly heated discussion about mirrorless versus DSLRs. I'm leaning on the side of mirrorless. I don't really care so much what we say it's mirrorless or DSLRs. There's just some features of mirrorless cameras that I really appreciate these days in shooting. And we had, I don't say a heated discussion, but a discussion with strong opinions from different people, but we all stayed very civilized. I think one of my favorite things about this group, other than the fun fact that we have discussions about whether cilantro is better or peanut butter is better, is that we can have these discussions. This is a place on the internet that I feel like is very rare, because people have discussions but are still smiling at the end of them. And it's not one of those places where if you have an opinion that's different than somebody else's, you're called a ninny compooper. Or
decent word choice there. I like that.
Give us a British word that's kind of ninny, but still PG.
PG.
Yeah, no. I thought that stand for penis.
It does stand for penis.
Oh, okay.
That's PG, isn't it? The kids in America not call each other a penis?
Oh, they call each other way worse than that.
Yeah,
but I'm trying to be a grown-up, so.
He's not been a grown-up since he got here, I tell you. There's some stories. We won't go into those.
So, but Roy posted in the chat, if you want to be part of this group, photorec.tv/support, you can learn more. And if you have any questions, just message us.
Should we go back on track-ish?
Yeah.
In terms of Photokina, or
yes, let's go back on track-ish in terms of Photokina. But A99. You want to talk a little bit about Sigma?
Sigma. So we, as press, we were allowed to try the brand new 85 1.4 art series and the 12 to 24 f4. Again, go watch the video, but super quick mini review. They felt really nice. So the background noise, my cat's doing something in the dining room.
They can't hear that.
They can.
By something he means taking a poop.
Probably, yes. They felt very nice. The 85 1.4 probably felt pretty similar in size and weight to this Tamron 15 to 30, which is a monster.
No, that's stabilized. The Sigma's not.
The Stigma is the Stigma.
The Stigma.
The Sigma 85 is not stabilized. Neither was the 12 to 24.
You bring up Stigma. I feel like Sigma does have a little bit of a stigma.
Yeah.
In the past, years ago, before the before the A art series came along, they weren't, coming off the assembly line. What do you call it? Quality control wasn't top notch. You might run into some focus issues. You might run into some greater chromatic aberration. There were still decent lenses to be found, but they maybe weren't the best.
It's just no longer the case.
That's right.
It's to be honest,
I feel
the same. There's been a huge rebrand with those, and exactly the same with Tamron. I am shooting all Tamron at the moment in the SP line, and the lenses are just not like they used to be. They're not a cheap, crappy option. They are good, solid options for people. Obviously, at the moment, they are more affordable in the most part, but they're fantastic in my opinion. Those Sigmas felt really nice. They wouldn't let us mount it to a camera. They let some other people do it. Hell, they were there earlier in the week. We were there very much at the end of the week, and obviously there was a lot more consumers. it was how it was. But you know, they're going to be pretty exciting when they come out. They're not cheap though. So
so I mean, the Sigma 11 to 24, that'll be really interesting to put up against the Canon
12 to 24.
12 to 24. That'll be really interesting to put up against the Canon 11 to 24.
That is the 11 to 24,
which is a $3,500 lens. Sigma's going to be. Did they not?
I don't think it was going to be quite as much as that.
No, I think it's going to be what, 1,400, 1,200.
They were claiming that it basically, well, they were claiming almost zero distortion on it, which is just not true, really. Not from what I saw. But I suppose the model was pre-production. I should obviously point out. You can't say an awful lot more than it in terms of how it handled and how it looked on the back of a LCD screen of a camera that was handed to me by Sigma, because they wouldn't let me use my own camera. But well, we'll see.
Okay.
The other lens is so the other video that's gone out is about the Samyang premium lenses.
Sorry, did you say the 85 too already? Okay.
Yeah. He's not even drunk.
Just tea, I know. We talked about drinking. It would be fun, but man, it's late and I got an early flight. It's actually not that early, but I just want to chime in and say the 85 was the lens that people have just been wanting Sigma to announce for it. You know, since the 50 came out and people realized that it was as good as it was, they're saying now give us an affordable 85 that will rival Canon's 85-1.2. I think David's in chat, McKay Photography Academy. He like myself loves that Canon 85-1.2. It is a lens in its own class, not just because of its focal length, not just because of its aperture, but a combination of that plus this kind of magical colors that it just produces. It's just a really nice lens. So I'm really excited for the 85-1.4 from Sigma to give it a good run for its money. Yeah, okay.
Frank has actually just pointed out in the chat, he said there's some compatibility issues with Sigma's lens and the 5D Mark IV. Well, actually, there's some compatibility issues with Tamron lenses and the 5D Mark IV we found in live view. Toby was trying to use it yesterday right by the Gherkin. There was a really nice bicycle underneath a tree and some gorgeous light, but you wanted to try and get the whole thing in, so I said, hey, use the 15 to 30. And as soon as you went into live view, it just threw you out.
Yep.
And a similar thing happened with a certain focus mode with my 24 to 70 as well.
Yeah.
And that wasn't great. And you had a few issues with the 50 on the 5D Mark IV as well.
Yeah, I'm not ready to, I need to go back and look at those carefully, but on the photo walk last night I was using the Sigma 50 on the 5D Mark IV, and I was really unhappy with sharpness. Let's call it focusing. It was acting like it was focusing, but it really wasn't. Threw that 50 on the Sony with the Sigma adapter, spot on, exactly what I wanted. So the lens isn't the issue there, it's a combination, and so something's a little confused. We're in this age where lenses have firmware now, and so I think we'll see firmware updates either through Tamron's TAP or the Sigma dock. It's kind of annoying that we have to do that, but that is one downside to third-party lenses. That's something that sometimes the manufacturers like to scare you away. I know Ken Rockwell sometimes will talk about that as well. But they offer such fantastic alternatives, price and features and value, that a little firmware update now and then is not such a big deal. Let's hope that's all it takes.
One thing you won't have focusing issues with is the new Samyang premium line, because they're manual focus, so you're definitely going to have issues with those. Again, there's a video for those on the channel. By the way, anyone in the chat, Toby's using my account, so they felt fantastic. They honestly felt I don't want to quite say as good, but almost as good as the Zeiss Otus line. They felt fantastic. The 14 2.4, if that thing's anything near as good as the 14 2.8, which we recommend all the time for astrophotography.
2.4 is even better.
Hopefully, well, I suppose there's things like coma and various different bits in terms of astro, but we'll see. Hopefully it will be good. But the build of it felt phenomenal, and the 85-1.2 again felt very, very nice. So definitely go and check those out. In terms of other stuff, Toby is just currently trying to incriminate me on the chat again by saying I'm shorter than everyone.
Why? Look, we speak the same language. Why is the keyboard so different? Why are the buttons moved around?
You don't have a QWERTY keyboard in your MacBook Pro?
Yeah, I do, but my shift and caps, well, I guess they're the same.
No, you're just being a fool.
Got it stuck in caps lock, so everybody thinks I'm shouting in the chat now, but I'm not.
What else is? I mean, we don't have a video about it just yet, but the A6500 has been announced, which is a slightly beefed up A6300. So it's now a stabilized sensor and basically people are talking like basically an unlimited buffer.
Well, it's not unlimited in JPEGs. I think it's close to.
Okay.
But RAW, you're going to fill that up. But an increased buffer, increased pipeline to write to the card. I'm quite positive about the A6300. I really enjoy shooting at that camera. When I did the Moab trip in April, fantastic landscape area. That was the only camera I took and shot with, and I had zero complaints about it. I love the lightweight. Maybe a little bit later on the discussion or the after show, I'll talk a little bit about switching out kits and thinking about switching out kits. You're a little less positive about the A6300.
Felt like a toy. Didn't like it.
A toy that shoots beautiful images.
It shoots good images. The image quality still isn't as good as this. This is not the A7R2. This is my A7 II. The images out of this are still nicer. The focus is miles better on the A6300, I can't deny that. But overall the whole thing just didn't feel good, because when you put in a decent lens on there, like a 2.8 or even the 55 1.8, the balance just doesn't feel very good on it. I think if you're using maybe some smaller primes, like is it 35 f2? Is it an f2?
Yep, that sounds right.
The Sony one, maybe the new 50 1.8 from Sony. It might feel nicer, but yeah, I wasn't keen on that camera.
Well, you're talking to a guy who had the Sigma 150 to 600 mounted to the A6300 in Tanzania some.
But you were on beanbags.
Yeah, you are on beanbags. But when you put a bigger lens on a smaller body, your other hand becomes the bulk of the holder, and I don't mind so much. There are certainly circumstances where it wouldn't be great, but for general photography, I think I'm fine with that. So the A6500's got a touchscreen now, which solves
finally
a major complaint of the Sony is that kind of, especially with this A6300, smaller body, a little bit less friendly to control. Touchscreen really makes it much more friendly to navigate the menu, which has also got a redesign.
That is getting redesigned. Also jumping in there, the anything from the A7 II onwards, so the A7S II and the A7R2 are also going to be getting the same menu system as the A99 Mark II, which I did play with, although it was in German, and it does seem a lot more user friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, when I went to the Sony event last spring, early spring, I said, guys, this menu, and they are like, we've heard that, but, there's just a lot in here, what would you suggest? And I was like, sit down with a couple of photographers and videographers and help them group things because the A6300 had AF things in one tab and then in a fourth tab, and there was one setting I could remember, and I asked the Sony guys, can you help me get I can't even remember what it was, something about the speed of the focus. He couldn't even find it. So they are up, they've figured that out. I hope they've logically grouped these. Now, I was reading DP Review. It sounds like this touchscreen isn't the be-all, end-all. It sounds like it's a little quirky, which is a downside. You can, like the D5300 or D5500, it acts as a touchpad when you bring the camera up to your eye. So you bring the camera up to your eye and you can touch the back to set your focus points, but it's a relative type thing where you just kind of swipe to move it around. You would think touch over here to focus on the right side, touch over here. No, it's more of a swipe to move it right, swipe to move it left, and a couple other quirks that, so that's a little bit of a bummer, but it is what it is. And I think it will be a very strong APS-C candidate. I feel like the 6300, for the majority of just want to go out and take pictures with an APS-C sized sensor and camera, I think the 6300 is the best thing on the market right now. There are certainly reasons to go with the ADD and the reasons to go with the Nikon D70-200, 7300. But I think for most people, the A6300 offers a lot.
It's a good camera. It just
Yeah.
wasn't the camera for me.
Okay.
Drones.
Yeah. So I want to set this up. A couple of weeks ago, GoPro started teasing, the Karma. Everybody knew it was a drone. Drone's coming. They had a couple of these videos where, there was one where it was in a library and you're kind of floating down and then you're sliding through the stacks right up to this girl sitting at the table. No movement from hair that would be blowing if there's, stuff. So people started hypothesizing, including myself. I was pretty proud. I was the first one I saw say this. I'm sure some other people were coming up to it too. I thought it's probably like the Unique in that it's a drone and a removable gimbal. And sure enough, it is this cool foldable drone with removable gimbal, and I was like, that's awesome. Portability, yes, because as somebody who just took a drone to Scotland, that was a whole other checked carry-on bag, a whole other bag to carry around at time when I already had 2 other bags. So I look ridiculous sometimes on these trips when I'm testing cameras and I have 3 different camera bodies and a drone. It's not actually that much fun. You might think it's fun, but it's not really that much fun.
We carried that drone all the way down the end of a pier, and then it was too windy.
It probably wasn't. I was just a little nervous. But anyway, yes. And so this looked good. And then a week later, DJI is like, yeah, we see what you got. Here is something that is a lot better. It is so much smaller, offers what seems to be a lot more if you don't need that removable gimbal, and kind of just blew the doors off what
GoPro did. Yeah. I think unless you want this, what apparently is going to be slightly better image quality out of the GoPro Hero 5, as opposed to the inbuilt drone on the Mavic Pro. A lot of people are going to be going for that Mavic. The price of stuff is going to be I think the pricing is going to be fairly similar, and that Mavic Pro is just like this. You can
you can slip it in your purse.
My purse, because I carry a purse. I can put it in my camera bag as if it was
70 to 200.
200.
Yeah.
And that's just phenomenal. Incredible range. Still flies really fast. Still shoots 4K and all the codecs. We want to try it. Obviously, seems like it could not only be great for footage, but a lot of fun as well. Has a really you don't have to carry this huge remote anymore like you do on the Phantom. It's just really well designed.
Why don't you have to carry the remote anymore?
You don't have to carry a huge remote. You have to carry a remote, but it's a smaller remote that then clips your phone in the bottom. It's just a lot more compact.
Yeah, it's nice, and you can even actually fly it from your phone for the shorter distances.
Oh, can you?
Yep. You can just bring it right up, and so. Yep. And Roy is reminding us in chat that the GoPro stock sunk a little bit after this, about 6%.
Didn't realize it could go any lower.
Yeah, they haven't been doing really well as kind of the GoPro saturate the market. And I remember this from the Yellowstone trip, just watching snowmobiler after snowmobiler drive by with GoPro strapped on their head, thinking, how many of them are doing anything of that footage? And that's one of the things that GoPro is really trying to work on, their cloud-based storage now, edit anywhere on your phone. So that that's an approach separate from the whole drone issue. I don't think GoPro's done by any means. I don't think anybody's suggesting they are, but they certainly aren't going to keep continuing to grow the way they are, and I think they really hope this drone would help them, and it does not seem like it's going to.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think it's great for us as working professionals and as consumers, because when you've got companies battling it out together, same reason we enjoy companies like Sony and Nikon and Canon, various different people innovating, is it just makes it better for all of us. So hopefully there's going to be more stiff competition coming from even more companies.
That's right. I mean, it is fun to think about. Here we got drones from multiple companies coming in, basically now that are small. What are we going to have in a year, 2 years, 5 years as far as these tools go? Because Scott mentioned fun. It certainly is fun to play with these, but man, it is just really nice to have tools that are fast, efficient, and easy to work with when I want to make you all good content. And so it's just exciting to think about what we're going to see. You know what we haven't seen is the Lily. Remember that Kickstarter drone that you're supposed to launch from your hand, be like a little selfie drone? Vaporware.
No?
No. Don't remember?
Didn't come out, did it?
No. That's why it's vaporware. All right. Now we move into that part of the show. Are we ready for this?
You have to do it.
I'm embarrassed now looking straight at the camera a little bit. Photos from space. It's part of the show where, I don't know when this started. It was quite a while ago. But there's just so much cool astronomy. Oh, and you Instagrammed a pretty cool star picture a day or two ago.
I did. When Toby arrived, well, he'd been up really early for a flight, so I thought, what should we do? We'll go out and do some night photography. Yeah, I Instagrammed a picture of us. Sorry, not a picture of us. It was just a nice
Picture of us in
framed
the
one.
stars.
Yeah, how romantic. It was just a star shot that we did, and I got quite lucky because the spot we were on was on a very, very quiet road. It was actually exactly where we'd flown the drone about 5 hours earlier. We figured it'd be quite good.
Out in the English countryside.
In the countryside-ish.
By the governor's.
He's been mocking my accent all week.
I'm not mocking, trying.
Trying.
Terrible at accents.
And at the time there was this tree in the foreground which I really wanted to try and put on that just lower third part in the frame, and as I had the shower open on one of them for 25 seconds, a car drove past and just lit that foreground. And so sometimes it's just about being in the right place at the right time.
Where can people see that? Well, I know, I think that a lot of the times too, like it's about being in the right place at the right time. But the fact is that we went to that place.
We did go to that place.
Where can people see this picture?
My Instagram is at photoscott88.
We don't have Riley or any
We do normally have
so
the thingies.
when I put my hands here, that would when it would like show up, but we'll just link it down below.
We should have had some paper and some marker pens, shouldn't we? We could have just sort of like gone like this.
We could have.
Yeah.
Why don't you write it on your iPad like you greeted me at the airport with a Toby guy? Yes, and so that was a lot of fun, so go check that out. You can see a shot I mentioned shooting with a 5D Mark III doing star trails over a castle in Scotland.
Mark 4?
Mark 4, thank you. Mark 5. Oh, I spilled the beans. Canon had given them to me. No, I'm just kidding. So you can go see that on mine, which is just Photorec Toby on Instagram as well. And we'll link those right down below. But photos from space, we always kind of thought that was cool, so we made a segment a while ago where we mentioned some photo from space. And we've got
Can you use the share screen?
the European, yeah, I was going to work on that. We have the European space, oh, you know what, I have to make sure the audio, oh, I did that, good. Hey,
We're so pro.
Yeah. The Dustbuster telescope gives a clear view of the M78 nebula, and Roy picked this out, I believe. Roy did a great job because this is from the European Southern Observatory, so I'm on the right side of the pond to talk about this. Gives new insights into rich star-forming regions. So this is the new, no, we don't want to receive updates from the cosmos, new clearer image of the nebula Messier 78 taken with the Vista infrared survey telescope at ESO Panorama Observatory in Chile. Now, I really like taking star pictures. I've never shot with a modified camera. You can have the infrared, you can have the sensor modified to do a better job of capturing the stars. I've been happy capturing, what I can see with my eye, but this is still a very, very cool image. And you've got some examples down below of the difference an infrared is able to capture versus the visible light, and there's nice comparisons here showing the different wavelengths from the Vista telescope. You can clearly see that there's a lot more dust available. So basically shooting infrared is like cranking up the dehaze slider in Lightroom to a very, very high number. Now I'm just stalling as Scott has left the room. I don't know why, he just pointed. Maybe he needs a snack or what, but we're gonna come back to me because I'm all done talking about that. So, that was photos from space. Now we move into the part of the show where I discuss a little bit. We've got an article here where some travel photographers were asked. Oh, he's probably getting water because I've been able to drink tea. Travel photographers were asked some suggestions for how to take better pictures on the road. Top 10 rules for travel photos. So let's load that so Scott can come back onto the scene without looking. I can't make it open. There we go. Switch here. Pro level. There he goes. No one can hear you walking. It's fine.
You didn't have to give the game away. Nobody would have known.
Oh, I think they would have heard that squeaky cabinet back there that was full of
door.
Crisps or something that you British people eat.
Stick around for the after show to find out why I went out.
Okay. But let's come back to us for a second. We don't need to open this just yet.
We were reading this article a little bit earlier, weren't we? Because obviously obviously we'll get to the points in a moment, but a lot of the travel tips are things that you tend to say a lot in terms of for travel photography, because obviously Toby is an international jet setter rather than me. I just go on holiday and stuff. But I mean, the first point on this article is probably even just something that we experienced just going from where I live in the suburbs but up to London is pack right.
Yep. Yeah, David and Allie and I are gonna put together some content for you all soon. I think the three of us, David and Allie, especially running McKay Photography Academy, that takes people all over the world. They've got a bit of experience in travel and travel photography and what makes things easy. And I now, as Scott has said, am a bit of a jet setter, and have learned fairly quickly. I just kind of complained about having 3 bags. It really impacts my mood, which then really impacts the images that I can capture when I'm dragging around a ton of equipment. So packing right is one of the tips in this. I don't think we're going to go over all of these tips.
No.
I understand. I'm in an enviable position of being able to take brand new cameras, drones, and go amazing places. So I'm not complaining about that. But for you out there, when I traveled across the country, I focused on just making pictures. I didn't care about videos, shooting videos for you all for that, because I just needed to move. If you didn't know, I've moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I had limited lenses because I said, I'm just going to bring this. The rest of the stuff's getting packed and shipped. And I made some of my favorite images I've made in quite a long time, because there was very little distractions. And so packing right is starting early in your trip and deciding what you should take and think about the other things is actually maybe just more distracting. Now, it's a lot of fun to go and bring toys and do all kinds of things, and I love making content for you all, and I love traveling to these places. But if you're really focused on the photography, pack right so that you're really focused on the photography and not, ooh, this lens or this or that. Take what you got and make it work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agree.
I like be prepared to travel alone.
That's something I should do more, really. I don't like travel alone. Is, well, going to the other part of the world maybe alone. If you wanted to go on some kind of crazy photo expedition, it makes a good point in the article. Basically, that will be linked, by the way, of just leaving everything behind because you've got no one else kind of tying you to anything. I prefer the company personally.
You know what? Yeah.
I'm willing to do a slight trade-off in terms of wanting to go exactly where I want to go, where I want, but having the company of someone else shooting alongside me. But if you're really desperate to go and get those shots, being independent is very, very good.
Yep. And I don't think they have to say you always should go alone. But there are times where, when I go, even with very patient friends or family, I feel an internal pressure that they're not enjoying this as much as I am, and kind of a more rushed feeling. But when I'm out there and I say I'm not going to be home to X time or to the next day or something, it really allows you again to focus on making a nice picture or two. So I think being alone sometimes is nice. We got some the ideas of maps, doing a little bit of studying before you go.
Yeah.
Is a great idea. Or you can be like me, travel with McKay's, and I don't pay attention to anything, just get off the bus and presented with beautiful locations. Engaging people. Now, we actually shot a little bit today in London for some photographing in city tips video that we're working on. And one of my tips in that was, I actually hadn't read that one yet, engage with people. Because you're going to get better images. I like that. You could do the sneaky kind of street photography route, but when I was photographing in Cuba, I really liked engaging with the people and kind of getting their reactions of being photographed, if they allowed me to. I would ask always.
Yep.
Backing up your images is good while you travel. There's always stories. Sometimes it even happens on the trips that I'm on, where someone thought they were backing up images, or almost every trip it happens where somebody thought something was happening and then they realized that they lost some images, or that they potentially lost some images and needed to do capture recovery software.
The most common one for me is you're on holiday and you're thinking, I'm going to use a different card every single day, and then you haven't correctly labeled them. And then you get to a point and you think, oh, I really want to take a picture of this, and you realise that basically the card is either next to or full, and you haven't downloaded the images from that card yet. You put that in and you kind of like, oh, I'm in two minds, I'm either going to miss this shot, or particularly if you're like me and you're actually using two different camera brands. If as soon as you put a card that's got Canon images into the Sony goes, well, I want to put the menu system on here, and it wipes the card.
The database, yeah.
So it's backing stuff up is really, really important. I just wish there were easier options than or easier affordable options than bringing a computer along with you when you travel.
Yeah, I mean, Roy's got a write-up on the site. Maybe you can link that in the link show notes, Roy, about those kind of wireless drives that allow you to slot SD card in, or the ones. Some of them are a little slow. No, actually, all of them are a little bit slow. There's some trade-offs, but they do allow you to travel a little bit lighter, a little bit faster. I bring my computer along because I often do some photo editing and some video editing on these trips. My bigger Mac laptop is over there. I would like to be able to travel lighter, because it is, you load up all that camera gear and then you load that Mac in there, and it's a lot of weight. But it's just the reality where it is right now. I agree. Especially if you're traveling to more exotic locations, you really can't count on cloud backup.
No. And if going back in terms of what we're carrying around, particularly a photo Kina is not the most exotic of locations, but obviously we needed various gear and then backup gear, and then the only other option other than carrying it around on our backs was either to leave it at the hotel or possibly put some stuff in lockers. So we were walking around all day. Bear in mind we're filming, and then I'm trying to be on camera as well, but with a laptop, with the Sony, with a backup camera with a few different lenses as well, it kind of grates on your experience a bit, doesn't it? So
it does.
But you having those backup options, not even just in terms of backing up your images, in a backup way of taking images, whether it's even your phone or a smaller camera. If you're on that holiday of a lifetime, particularly on the safari, you need two cameras really, even if you can just borrow. But it just adds to the weight, and it's a pain.
Yeah. I like this. You don't need to go halfway around the world.
No.
That spot that you went out and shot the stars. Have you ever shot there before?
Never. No. Do you know what, that road? We just happened to be driving home from Southend, and the route that it took me in these back alleys from these back roads, which is a really nice driving road as well. Yeah. Through on Google Maps, we just went, this would be a really good spot to fly the drone, and we just pulled up on the side of the road and flew the drone, and then we had dinner and we were like, I think we've still got enough in us, we want to go and shoot the stars, let's go back to that point. And in fact we couldn't exactly remember where it was, could we? We just went and sort of tried to drive back the same route and found it again. Sometimes you have these little gems that are so close to your house. I live very central in a city in Essex, and light pollution is a problem here, let alone in London, and we got 10-15 minutes away and it was pretty clear. It wasn't perfect.
And the moon was partially up too, so it was not optimal conditions, but you still got a great shot. I shot Star Trails again. I haven't posted that anywhere yet, but
Star Trails. So
well, I just it's a lot of fun, and especially now again with the 5D Mark IV, that built-in intervalometer. It's just so easy to set up. But so yeah, point being, it's like 15 minutes away from home and fantastic conditions. So we very easily get stuck in the rut of the place I live is boring. There's nothing to photograph around me.
It's definitely not true.
And it's not true. No matter where you live, there is interesting things. And if you go out there and challenge yourself, you'll make some interesting photos as well.
Yeah.
I think
respect is a good one. Respect is probably a very good one, not only in terms of footprint. Firstly, is a good thing. Just making sure that you're not disturbing. If you're in something's natural habitat, is that you respect that. But also in an area, if it's an area where you either can't shoot photos or video, or there's local customs you should be adhering to, is that you do respect those. There was, particularly when I was in Bali, there was these incredible temples that I really wanted to get in and shoot, and they say, hey, sorry, you're not allowed to use your camera in here. Okay, fine, I won't do that. Just be respectful. Sometimes you can just sort of, hey, do you mind if I take one shot of this sort of thing? Sometimes they'd be okay, or if not. But being friendly is really an easy thing, particularly when we were up on the viewing platform on the top of the Tate Modern today, which was filming some remaining footage of this city video, and it's quite busy around there, and just me and Toby being polite to people, saying, hey, do you mind if we just have 1 minute just standing in this point? People just, if you're polite to people about them, they're just like, oh yeah, okay, fine, that's great.
Kindness doesn't cost you anything.
Manners cost nothing. That's right. What we say round here.
You just got like your accent changed.
It's sort of a very heavy Cockney Essex accent.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to talk too much like you.
Yeah. You mean proper English?
Proper
English, governor. Governor's about the only thing I say that sounds somewhat right to me. So that's it. But yeah, I think that's good. That's a good place to end. These should be linked in the show notes if you want to read some more of them. I saw Frank ask a question that I think kind of, travel now for me is a job. I mean, I am working with the McKays, and it was asking if the novelty is wearing off. The answer is no. Travel is amazing, and I feel incredibly lucky to be able to do what I do. Flying might be wearing off a little bit, but that actually wore off quite a while ago, with my kids on the West Coast and me flying out to visit them fairly often. So that has not been nearly as exciting as it used to be. But the act of travel, and even though, I know with McKay's I'm going to be going back to Iceland next summer, which I think that trip is sold out. I was thinking, I'm going back to Iceland. I've been there. It's an amazing place. But again, like we talked about, you could go back to that road place 15 minutes down the road, and there's a different time of day, different weather. There's so much difference.
Different. You can just compose an image ever so slightly differently, and sometimes you find just composing something that different, that's it. You've been trying to just tweak that image to make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going back to that spot.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm very excited about traveling still.
I'm also going to Iceland next year. Not at the same time.
No.
But
I'm excited to see your pictures.
It's mostly a holiday, so we'll see what I can sneak away and get done. But we are going on a Northern Lights tour. I'm really hopeful we'll see the Northern Lights, but it's not guaranteed. The only other thing I really wanted to see was the abandoned DC plane.
Oh.
But now you can't drive right up to it anymore. Apparently you can.
You can't.
No. It's basically something like an hour and a half walk from the car park. And apparently it's now, because it's so well known about it, it's very, very busy. So to try and get a photograph there with no one on it, you'd have to ND up, and I don't think my girlfriend wants to spend most of her holiday
sitting
watching.
Get up really early. That's another
what?
tip. Early.
He gets up early, like really early. Like I wake up, my girlfriend's gone out to work stupidly early. I look over my phone. Who's online on Facebook chat? Oh, Toby's online. It's like, what? It's like too early.
That's when all the exciting stuff is happening.
You didn't want to get up that early this morning.
Well, that's true because we were out late last night.
We were late.
I am a human being.
On a fantastic photo walk.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
It was nice.
Yeah.
Except for losing 2 people.
We did lose 2 people. We're very sorry to the people that lost the group.
I'll write that one guy an apology.
Yes, you should write him an
I'm
apology.
smiling a little bit, but I'm not sure how that happened. I'm sorry. They're still alive, but
Definitely, well, to the extent that they can write emails.
yeah. Is that good for discussion?
That's good for discussion.
Yeah. Want to move into?
Ooh, we've got some questions.
We do to the Q&A where we answer your questions. So if you haven't already, put it in chat. Roy will collect it and add it here. Well, we'll answer a couple, and then what we do is we cut to the after show. And the after show, when we do these public shows, is live and continues. If you're watching live, you get to see, but after the fact gets cut off and is held just for our Patreon people. Our supporters, and that's where we do our critiques as well. So we'll answer a few more questions and critiques during that part. We're gonna start wrapping. Well, let's get going and let's not have the show go too much longer. Because
I've got to drive you halfway around the M25 tomorrow. So if you're obviously not English watching this and you don't know why that could be a problem,
it's the Beltway.
Google may be your friend. It's the main highway, as we'd call it, or sorry, as you'd call it. It's very well known for bad traffic.
Mm-hmm. Roger has the 100 to 400 Mark II lens.
Jealous.
Fantastic lens. I'm jealous as well. That is a great lens for travel. It's getting a little bit bigger, but I think it's a very versatile lens, and I love using telephotos for landscapes. He bought it in May this year. The image quality he finds is as good as the Canon 400mm prime. However, 400 millimeters isn't quite close enough in some situations. Now, background for those watching, Roger shoots a lot of birds in flight photographs.
It's very good at it as well.
He's been getting some great shots. So, it's not close enough. Should he sell or part with the 100 to 400 and maybe pick up the new Tamron 150 to 600? Have we done any tests, or has anyone done any tests or reviews on this yet? I haven't seen any yet. Have you?
I tried it at Photokina, but it was on a 7D Mark II, which I think Roger has a 7D Mark II. But it's impossible to go a proper review of it when it's up on one of those stands. What I was told by Tamron is that the old 150 to 600 only had one CPU built in, which handled the VC and the focusing. And the focusing on that one apparently was, you've used the Mark 1 and it's not bad, is it? In terms of focusing.
No, it's not bad.
The new
just
one,
not as good.
Yeah, the new one now has a dedicated, so it now has 2 CPUs built in, so it has one dedicated for the VC and one for the focusing. And I must admit, even indoors at 600mm, it was snappy. In terms of image quality, it's impossible to tell really until it comes out, until we get sample images, until we got a sample. We are talking to Tamron at the moment, but whether we get that specific lens in, it depends.
I would say that I think you're better off trying the 1.4x teleconverter before parting with the 100 to 400, because that 1.4 is going to give you out to 600. And I don't think it's going to impact your focus more than switching to something like the Tamron.
Will you keep AF?
Yes.
Only center focal point?
Yep. With the 1.4x on the 7D Mark II, you'll have it at the center focus point still.
Is that going to be easy for birding though? 150 to 600, he'd have everything available, wouldn't he?
You would, but you right now have what is, in my opinion, the kind of the gold standard of that general focal range as far as focus and quality goes. Is it that much better than those other lenses out there? No, but it is the best in my opinion. And I think you may be somewhat frustrated. One of the things that you might want to do is rent it for a weekend and try side by side to see what works best for you.
We were talking about that on the photo walk though. Renting lenses here is very expensive.
Is Roger here in the UK?
Yeah, Roger's. I think Roger's near Birmingham.
Yeah.
Saying that, Max has just made a good point. Is that Canon have recently been working behind the scenes. They've patented it, so it is public knowledge that there's going to be a 200 to 600.
It's going to be.
Well, I don't know, because apparently it's not going to be an L. So it may be more affordable, like the 70 to 300 kind of.
If it's not an L, then I bet the Tamron and the Sigma are going to offer a better value.
Maybe.
But let's wait and see. Yep. But I totally get what you're saying about 400 not being quite close enough. There were multiple times in Tanzania where out at 600, and even as close as we could get to the animals, you did want to get a little bit closer, especially with birds, smaller objects. You want to fill the frame, both for better focusing capabilities and also to fill the frame. It looks good.
Another point to maybe note though is it depends where you're sharing your pictures, because unless you're printing pictures particularly big, you've always got that option to just crop. And at 400 with what's the 70 Mark II 24 megapixels, you crop in quite a lot. You've still got quite a lot of information there to play with.
Yeah.
But it's always great to try and fill that frame and get the full resolution, that kind of stuff. But it's just always an option. But it's nice, we're always wanting more, aren't we?
Roger says the 200 to 600 will be megabucks more. Roger, we're going to skip your flash question. We'll come back to that in the after show, I think. Caroline wants to know, where else am I going in England?
The airport.
That's what I was going to say. This was a whirlwind trip because it just happened that there were just a few days in between the Scotland trip and the beginning of the New England Fall Colors trip. So this is all the time we have. Scott did an amazing job of packing time in. I will be back though, because his better half-ish, say half-ish because you're not a fish,
Let's skip this part.
Is a wonderful cook and they have a wonderful guest bedroom. So and I'm smitten with what I've seen so far. So I'd like to come back.
And also, my cats have been sleeping at the end of his bed, and he likes that. So
I like cats.
He does like cats.
Tezap wants to know what your favorite word is.
My favourite word? I don't think it's broadcastable, is it?
Frank wants to know why do you think the A65 is toyish, Scott?
I think he meant the A63, as in the A6300.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel substantial enough for me. The grip isn't very deep at all. It's not something I feel I could carry around all day. I know it is fairly magnesium alloy, isn't it? But the feel and the weight of this A7 II just to me is just much more comfortable in the hand. And I use big lenses. I use 2.8 zooms and 1.4 primes, and the balance on it for me is just not very good. Just my opinion. It's going to be a great camera for a lot of people. One quick thing before we get into the other questions actually is my dad is in the chat.
Oh.
Has Toby tried a proper beer?
Oh, that's your father.
That is my dad.
Nice.
A proper beer, as in
Scott's
like a room temperature ale.
No. I blame you. You failed. You should have taken me. You point out all the good pubs.
I pointed out a lot of pubs.
So I said
we go to a certain area. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a good pub here. And it's like, no, you tried some light ales in Scotland. They might not have been room temperature, but they weren't all lagers, were they? Some of them were like ales, and they were hoppy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Plus, that's proper-ish.
At the risk of just sharing too much information about myself, so you think I'm a manly man, I'm not super into beer. It all kind of tastes similar to me. I mean, I certainly can tell when a beer is like really hoppy or really dark, but I'm like, it's a beer. And, there's a couple times on the Scotland trip where I was like, I should try beers. I'm in Scotland. And, Steve, one of the other participants, would be like, this is a great one. This is much better than the one I had yesterday. I tasted it. I'm like, I don't think I could tell the difference from the one you had yesterday. This is very similar.
I'm slightly more of a beer connoisseur.
Slightly more.
I wish we'd framed this slightly higher. Actually, I've been breathing in the whole show. Never mind.
That's maybe a result of your beer connoisseuringness.
Yeah, and my girlfriend being a wonderful cook as well. So we all, as well as a very nice dinner, we also had some apple crumble and custard for dessert, which was good.
Yeah.
Brian wants to know any thoughts on the Fuji X-T2. Someone had it on the photo walk yesterday and said he's been very, very happy with it. A lot of the review stuff we've seen has been very positive.
The Fuji X-T1 was great. I personally didn't I don't care for Fuji's approach to their cameras. It feels a little slow to me, but you can make an argument for that, and I think for a lot of people it is fantastic. What I like about Fuji is fantastic sensors in those cameras. The kit lenses are awesome, and then of course the other lenses they produce, you can't get a bad lens from Fuji. I think it's safe to say that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's a really nice system.
It's very different.
Yeah,
that's what I'd say.
Yeah, well, it has some similarities to the Micro Four Thirds Olympus line. I think there's some similarities in control and setup there. But our thoughts are generally quite positive if you feel like you like that kind of retro, slower, more thoughtful approach.
So Sharky James from the Petapixel podcast, is in the chat at the moment.
Sharky James, your name is a bit of an advertisement.
Yeah, it is a bit of an advertisement. He said the rings for the ISO and shutter speed dials on the X-T2 are horrible.
Huh.
He has an X-T2.
Not a good feel to them as you turn, or chintzy, or not precise enough. You need a little bit more
Definitely
information about what ... horrible means. All right.
Gareth asks, have GoPro reached the end of their evolution? Well, it's a bit disappointing that it's taken them 5 GoPros for you to not have housing for it to be underwater. So, whether they've been holding that back or what. Have they reached the end of their evolution? No, definitely not. There's, they've got people in research and development, and it's the same as, cameras get to a certain point where you think, how are they ever going to do anything other than maybe a couple of stops better ISO and this, that, and new technologies just moves on, and
the march of progress.
Yeah, I don't by any means. The thing is with GoPro is it's the Kleenex thing and the Hoover thing. It's still that brand, as everyone sort of says, I want a GoPro, and even if they buy a Sony action cam or a different brand action cam, people still call it a GoPro. So that name is still so solid. I don't think it's anything near the end of them. But who knows what they'll come up with?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll move into surveillance or something.
Yeah, I think they still have scope to innovate. Certainly shrinkage is possible there. They get smaller and lighter. I've biked with GoPros and the Garmin Verbs on my helmet, and you feel that weight after a while. So there is room for improvement there. I don't think it's going to be quite as fast and furious as maybe some of the earlier models were. Yeah.
The Session now, apparently the video coming out of the Session is as good as the Hero.
Oh, they did fix that, because I know the original Session quality really wasn't very good.
The new one they're saying is a little bit better, I think. I'm not sure what the difference is really between that and the Hero 5, to be honest, because the Session is still cheaper.
Yeah. Gareth wants to know, should the GoPro go 3D? I don't know if you're joking or not.
3D is wow. That was probably in the limelight for as long as the GoPro Karma was.
I think 3D. Yeah. I think GoPro really needs to focus on the kind of the software side of things and being able to, and they're trying the new setup, really make it easy for you to find those interesting moments and get them out to share with friends and family. Because as I said, snowmobiler after snowmobiler flying by with recording GoPros on their head, generating an hour of footage that maybe has like 2 or 3 minutes of something somewhat interesting. So that's the key right there. So, okay. Let's cut it there. We'll answer a few more questions in the after show. But, you know, some people might be wondering when the show is coming back.
When is it coming back? I haven't been told.
I don't know. We'll have to discuss that. It's going to be a bit still. I still have some, I've moved to Seattle, but I still have some setup to go. And then I'm concerned with the amount of travel I still have in the future. It's, you know, one of the things that is important for me about the show is to be as consistent as possible. And if, you know, there's a week on and a week off and 2 weeks on and then 3 weeks off, that's not so good. So we have to look at that, figure out what we can do. But certainly we'll come back from time to time live, and in the meantime there will be the Patreon only show as often as we can offer it, which is fairly often since Scott is doing an awesome job there. Those people who are Patreon supporters, if you're not watching live now, you get to continue to watch the after show. We thank you. If you want more information about that, you go to photorec.tv/support. Anything else we need to say?
No. Other than thank you very much for watching.
Thank you very much for watching, and if you aren't a subscriber, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you found this mildly entertaining, just mildly, it doesn't even have to be like very interesting, just hit the thumbs up button. We appreciate that. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.